right. My principles are extremely neat. I filled my Kanban board. I know all my t-shirt sizes, and my Kaizen is fully extended. Today we're talking about project management. Dave, hi, nice to see you.
Ouch, what an intro. What an intro.
I almost bungled it, but I gotta provide you with these interesting intros, so that's just has to happen.
I'm just incredibly glad you missed out Six Sigma. If I could live my life without ever hearing that phrase in business, I'll be happy.
I am still unclear what that means. Like, it means like 6 decimal points or something, like accuracy, something like that. But it feels
It's
like
a level of
one
accuracy.
of those
Yeah.
things that has lost all meanings because it just has been repeated ad nauseum.
This is a complete sidebar to your intro, so I'm not going to derail us too far, but my understanding is that it's if you can measure as many things as possible around a given process or thing, you can potentially start to drive your outcome to a place where it is at that level of accuracy. So you can apply statistical analysis and improve based on the outcome of that. A lot of it gets tied into like A/B testing and that sort of thing. In the experience I had in the company I was in about 20 years ago, so maybe the whole field and practice has moved on or is not quite as I remember it.
Yeah, it makes sense, but it doesn't. It doesn't feel like there's any connection to the project management policies that I have experienced as both project manager or project managee.
Well, I'm going to need you to do our usual intro, Daniel, in a minute, because I'll feel lost if you don't, and I might feel a bit sad.
Just waiting for a slot, for a pause in the conversation.
Before we do that, just to frame what's going to be the conversation, why do you want to talk about this now?
Just because I am more and more needing to manage people. Like, Telemetric does not have any full-time employees except for me and Lisa, but we have multiple contractors now. Who are working like a few hours a week or every few weeks. And we're going to have a working student as well who's going to work, I want to say, 40 hours a month or something like that. Let's say a day a week.
Okay.
Anyway, tasks need to be divided up and distributed to these people so that they can actually work on stuff, and that they work on the stuff that I deem important, or if they decide to work on something that I actually know what they're working on, so then I can like write really prosaic blog posts about those.
Right.
And so I've been thinking, how can I have experience managing technical teams, but it turns out that the experience that I have was mostly either working in the same office or in a culture where the people are full-time, so that every day you can do stand-up and every week you can have like an all hands sort of thing. And so actually a lot of like friction already got eliminated in these meetings. And so now things are different. Also, the other thing is, I think I'm thinking about whether I should get the non-technical part of the company, which is mostly Lisa and Marina, into the same process, or should I like create something different for task with them and whatever. And so you graciously offered to talk to me about this, and I think you even said it live. And so here we are.
Yes.
And where are we? We are at Welcome for. No, I'm bungling the intro. All right, let's go from the top. Hey, welcome to Waiting for Review, a show about the majestic indie developer lifestyle. Join our scintillating hosts, Dave and Daniel. That's me. And let's hear about a tiny slice of their thrilling lives. Join us while waiting for review, and also while I am becoming less and less indie in the sense that I'm working alone, but still pretty indie because, we're not a huge juggernaut of a company that is working just for the shareholders.
100%. And I think, well, thank you, Daniel, for that intro. I feel a lot more settled now. It's definitely unsettling for me if we get too far without the intro.
Yeah, we don't
Although
like. Who
it's
knows
gonna,
what show this is?
it's kind of my mission that to try and crack you in the intro. Actually, so anybody watching on the YouTube, sometimes I'm pulling a bit of a face or doing silly things while Daniel's doing the intro. Um, yeah, I think I need to up my game though because I haven't managed to make him crack yet. So I need to
The thing
really
is,
try.
the thing is, what I do when I do the intro is I have a notes document, and when I
Yes,
do the intro, I'm dragging that notes document directly in front of my eyes on the screen, so I can look at the camera and still read off the thing, and so that
right.
is actually in front of you. So I didn't see you do anything.
Damn it, Daniel, that's just rude. I'm
I want
gonna
to
have
push it to
to.
the side again, so I can look at your beautiful face.
Fair. Thank you. I think. Cool. Well, anyway, I will try harder to wind you up next week. But if you put the notes over me,
Okay.
you're not
No,
going to
okay.
see it.
I
So
won't. I won't put the notes over you then. Like I want to see that.
cool. I'll up my game. Uh, Show topic stuff and things. Like I think everything you've described just before the scintillating intro um, is to me it's really interesting because you've had this point where things have been largely you've gone from solo developer to a team with your co-founder Lisa to having friends and other people and contractors and folks that you can bounce small bits of work to around everything, right? Now you've
Mhm.
got this potential the is it the intern that will be
Let's
joining
call
you.
him the intern.
Yep,
I had the intern. Yeah, I had an
yep.
actual intern, but and for him, I decided let's actually create a GitHub project for his internship, which is the feature that he's going to ship, which is just like revitalize the iOS app and um and so I think like for larger features, I want to continue doing that. Like just have a GitHub
Mm-hmm.
project basically with a Kanban board inside.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, that's kind of what brought this to the forefront of my mind because it was really easy to program manage the intern
Mm-hmm.
because um, I was just pair programming with him, and that was
Yeah.
good because he learned a lot, and I saw exactly what he was doing, and I could talk to him throughout the day. But of course, that's not scalable. Like
No.
I am pair programming a lot with some of the contractors every now and then, but yeah, that doesn't scale.
No, it
So that
doesn't.
will need to be reduced in the future. And so the
Yeah.
question is, like, how do I do this? So let me tell you, like, how I usually did project management at previous jobs. So usually, what I would do is I would have teams of 5 to 10 people at most, and with those, I would do a very I don't know, like a poor man's agile and or scrum basically. So what we would do is like we'd have a Kanban board, we'd have weekly or bi-weekly sprints, and then every sprint beginning we would sit together and look at the same board and be like, okay, these are the tickets, these are the issues that the tasks that we want to like tackle this week or this sprint, go through each of them just to do a bit of like refinement, like what does this mean, like how far should this go, and also like try to assign a size to them for like just a very very rudimentary form of burn down and or like velocity, so that you could know, okay, your sprint holds about X amount of points or sizes or whatever, and and that is basically it. And then people would just like either pre-assign tickets that they wanted if they really wanted that ticket and didn't want anyone to take it off them, and most tickets would just get like just lie around for someone to grab it. But especially with like smaller teams, like you usually have some people with specialties and like some tickets that only those people can do, so that's completely fine. And that is something that worked really well for me. And then yeah, and then you'd have some form of stand up in the morning, basically, where you'd be like, "Hey, how's it going?" Like, whoops, I've hit my microphone. Sorry. How's it going? Like, where are you? Where are you? And are you being blocked? Are you happy? Are you frustrated? What's going on? And yeah, that can't work right now because, or that can't work, I'm saying, but the problem is with telemetry deck, there are so many different aspects. Like even I
Mm-hmm.
can't really reasonably keep all the dimensions or keep working on all the dimensions of telemetry deck at once. There is the servers, there's the ingestion API and all the stuff that it does. There's the regular API. There's the dashboard front end that does that does a lot of work. There's the website. There is yeah, those are the main things. But then again, like even for um individual of individual features are can be so big and complicated that they then take up even more. So
Yeah.
what I've already started is I've started like because like I used to work pretty chaotically on all the features at once,
Yep.
and I've already started like building a roadmap where I'm like, okay, the next 5 big features are gonna be these. So actually, the next feature is reworking the telemetry deck website with lots of cool landing pages. You've seen those already, and that is almost done. Like I think content-wise, we need to do the main landing page or like the front index HTML page, basically, and also like a few design tweaks are left, but then that's that, and then we can go on to the next big project, which is the server move. And then the one after that is probably navigational analytics, which I'm looking forward a lot, actually.
Awesome. Wow, that's a lot. So, lay of the land, and I've been making notes as we talk because it's kind of
Oh,
what I
cool.
do in my quote unquote day job, and helps me navigate conversations like this. So, listeners, if you hear me type or see me looking away as we have this conversation, it's because I'm doing a bit of a working process. But anyway, so I look back over your what you've said, and I think what you're saying here is that your previous experience doesn't map to your current
Right.
world exactly. And kind of can't do in a lot of ways right now. So you don't have an office, you don't have perm staff who are staffing that office, so you can't be synchronous in that way. The fact that the staff are not full time, when I say perm, I mean full time permanent.
Mm.
Um, and the same aspect is present there if you were to be working asynchronously as well. Like you're both asynchronously in terms of location and in terms of time, day of the week, that sort of thing, kind of by default with what you've got going on. That's another reason why the pair programming won't scale, because it requires you and the other person to be synchronous. You can't be in two places at once. There's only one of you. And the times where that other person is available and you're available will naturally start to overlap with other activities you've got to do. The
Yeah.
more of it you do. So I think if I look down the sort of problems that you've got across telemetry deck, you've got all these different areas. There's a bit of overlap between them. The servers, the ingestion, the API, dashboard, all of that. Certainly overlap between, I think, the dashboard and the website in some of the web technologies you use. You've also got documentation and the marketing and blog posting within the website as well. That's okay. That's normal to have like lots of different projects in a business going on at once. It's just that it's tricky in terms of your size at the moment and where the team's at. So I think the other thing you've said is that you're building a roadmap. That's great because then you can articulate like where you're going, and that pulls you out of that sort of chaos monkey mode of startup, which I think is largely where you've been at with telemetry deck up until sort of fairly recently in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's understandable that you're at this point. I think with with what you've got going on, the first question that I would say is important for you to answer is, what sort of working culture and structure are you aiming for with telemetry deck in the longer term, in the medium term, in the shorter term?
Right.
So, yeah.
So I want to say in the longer term, I would love to have like a couple, let's say 2 to 3 cross-functional teams, as in
Mm-hmm.
just smallish teams of 5 to 7 to 10 people, maybe, who can work on a really cool feature together. And they probably have someone who's an expert at user interface and design, and someone who is an interface at the server stuff, an expert at the
Mm-hmm.
server stuff, and some like general programmer, something like that. Because then they can take a thing like navigational analytics, which is something I haven't explained to you, but it doesn't matter right now.
No.
And then someone can think about how do I really display those charts and graphs that we need to display for a navigation and analytics in a pleasing way. Like someone
Yep.
else can think about like how do we get the data out of the database in a way that makes sense, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so that
Okay.
would be really, really cool, because these teams can then work on one of those features. And so the problem right now is that because every technical person except me is only there for a fraction of the time, they like I can't really, or I don't really want to assign them things that can be blockers, because then I'll be always waiting, and everyone else will be always waiting for,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that person needs to come back for their one day in the virtual office this week.
Mm-hmm.
And so probably each of these people will need to be in their own team for now, which makes me a bit sad, because I like it reduces collaboration and the feeling of togetherness, you know?
Yeah, it will do. So that's exactly why I was asking, like, what is the vision in that sense? I mean, you've spoken about the potential scale of 2 or 3 teams at that sort of size, and having people who can specialize and lean into those sort of features. I think that's great. The bit that I want to get to sort of beyond that is, do you envision those folks being all over the place with a bit of hybrid working, remote working?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
There's like in my perfect utopia, there is going to be an office. There's actually going to be probably 2 offices or 3 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They're entirely optional. Like we're always going to be remote first, as soon as at least one person is in a meeting that is not on site, that meeting moves completely to a camera based, like everyone in front of their own computers kind of way, because that's I think how work should be these days.
Yeah, I agree. Like there's a there's a point to asking that question, to be honest, and it is like it's a case of starting as you mean to go on with any processes that you build now. So if the office is going to be the absolute focus, and you want to be building up a local team and that sort of stuff, then obviously that should be influencing who you're really bringing in right now and where that's at. The vision you've got is definitely aligned with the people you've got around you already and the direction you're starting out on. So that then brings me to another point here, and so I'm not talking about what you're working on, how you're splitting the work up, any of that yet. That I'm not saying that doesn't matter, but I think with what you've got going on right now, you need to be defining digital processes that are remote first and enabling people to work asynchronously, like right from the get-go. That's by default where you are.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So to me, that would look like things like, well, regardless of people working separately and not necessarily having much involvement, everybody should be in the same digital office. So if you're using Slack or Teams or whatever that looks like, everybody in contractor or what should be able to have the same access to the rest of the team. And so then that means and if you're not doing that already, that's a thing you can action probably pretty quickly. And I would include Lisa and Marina within that. So you're the not engineering side of the telemetry deck should also have that presence. For a lot of reasons. Number one is that you can then communicate in one spot and you're not having to have like 10 different conversations about some of the big things. If you're saying, okay, I've updated the roadmap, here's where I think we're going to go over the next few months. Me and Lisa have
I've
gone through
updated the
this.
roadmap. Pray I do not update it further.
Exactly, yeah. But you can communicate in one spot, right?
Yeah.
And that stops you having to go, oh, did I tell that person? Did I tell that other person? No, it's there. It's got a place.
Yeah, we do that except for one person, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
I will probably have to convince that person a bit more.
Yep. And then some other things that you can start to do already is that if certain things are going to need to be communicated and done with multiple people, and I'm thinking about pair programming exercises or bits where you're having to explain, right? And you're having to get into the detail of how something works or needs to be done. If it applies to more than one person, you don't want to do that more than one time. So get everybody together, try and make those moments synchronous, even though everybody is async. Like if like, hey, I'm going to deep dive on ingestion next week, lay out where we're going to go with updating that. And, I'm going to need the person looking at the API to get into that and somebody else to do X, Y, or Z. You've got to come together to have that conversation. You can't be splitting yourself, like repeating yourself and having two different conversations about the same area and expecting that to come together. So be very intentional with those synchronous moments and where stuff overlaps between the people, and try and create those. Like everybody's async, but we come together for these particular moments, these particular things. That could be one thing, one aspect of it. In terms of project management and what you've got going on with the intern, you mentioned using GitHub, and I guess it's kind of Kanban board project management stuff it's got there. And that's fine, right? That will give you what that person needs for working on the app. But I'd be wary about whether that will continue to scale or work for pieces of work that don't just live in one repo. And whether you could, if you've got anything that overlaps with your non-technical people, will they be wanting to work with Git in that way? Is that still going to be practical or not?
I don't know how long is it ago that you've used GitHub? Because like they have what they call projects, which are completely disconnected from repositories.
Yes,
and those are used for like, so they can be completely like overlapping multiple repositories and stuff like that.
Okay.
I'm not married to GitHub, so
Yeah.
but I haven't seen something that is like sufficiently better to make me do the switch, which would be costly, and also just like going all in on GitHub by default gives a lot of like, makes a lot of things way easier than they would otherwise be.
Does Lisa use GitHub for the same?
She does not.
Yeah. Okay. At some point, that's the thing I would say you two need to come together on, because you'll end up with some of her activities.
By the way, Lisa says hi. She's like, I was telling her, I'm gonna record the podcast now, and she's like, "Oh, say hi to Dave." Like, I'm 2 episodes behind, but oh yeah. So Lisa in the future, hi. I said hi to Dave.
Hi, Lisa in the future. I'm waving. Please watch the YouTube. Okay, so the tool for this sort of stuff doesn't really matter. What does matter is bringing everybody into the same sort of view. And you see what I'm pushing for here, and this is my values of management kind of showing through, and what I sort of aspire to with team building is I'm trying to say, set yourself up for a situation where you can be pretty damn transparent with everybody in your teams, right? This is the map. This is what we've got going on. This is where we all communicate. Let's try and have as many cross-cutting conversations out in the open, so that there's a conversation that isn't excluding anybody. From an async perspective, there's an element of that I think is useful. But also I need to call out that my experience is not largely, fully asynchronous working. Like, I've had a lot of experience with distributed, but we overlap during the day through these hours, and everybody is full time. So there's bias in anything I'm going to describe here, I think, from that. So there's probably something to watch out for, which is that, and this actually applies to any type of working or business, is where if you're having conversations in a tool like Slack or Teams or that sort of thing, and things are getting decided, like, okay, we're going to do this. This is the outcome of that. Right, you've got a thread or whatever, and you've gone back and forth on an approach or something. As your team grows and more people need to know where that sort of stuff is at, having those things buried in the chat tool is going to be problematic.
Yeah,
So
that's not good.
you got to drive your process straight out of the gate to, okay, that's agreed. Let's get that back in Git, in the project management over there, or let's get a ticket for that and capture it, or whatever your view of these things is.
Yeah. So the thing is, we do that, but because we do meeting notes and ticket items and stuff like that in Notion.
Okay, that's fine.
That is completely disconnected from GitHub again,
Yeah.
And the question is, I don't really want to bring all the technical to-dos into Notion, but then Notion is so incredibly helpful for the non-technical discussions and stuff like that.
Yeah. So that's something you're going to have to square up in time, probably. My take would be keep using the tools that are working for you, but you've got to understand there'll be a bit of a human in the loop to connect the two all the time. Yeah. So if anything spills out of Notion and needs to be a technical task, you're then going to be standing up the tickets for that in Git to reflect that. And, the two are not connected. At the moment, you're small enough that it probably doesn't matter. But there's certainly a point in scale where that will start to matter, because then only some people will only be looking at what's in Notion, some will be looking at what's in Git, and you've got a syncing thing. Probably not a problem right now. And that's the other thing with all of this. Like, you want to be building in a way where you're not trying to over optimize, you're not trying to bring too many new tools in. Like I said, it doesn't matter whether it's GitHub and its project management, whether it's Jira.
I knew you would say Jira.
Yeah. It's just a tool. It's a clunky as one, but it is just a tool. What's the other one? I'm trying to remember. It was basically, they were really, really big about 8 years ago.
What I used in the deep past was Assembler. Do they still?
No, it's the other one that was just basically a digital card system.
The thing where it's basically just a Kanban board?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean, but it escapes me right now.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter. And that's the point, right? Is the tools don't matter. It's how you're using them.
There's also this Mac-based one, or no, it wasn't, not even Mac-based one, but there's this cool ticket management system or whatever that everyone wants me to use, but actually that's like, I don't know, 25 euros per seat, and also I don't know, like I am not convinced that it's actually better than other management systems, and it's not connected to anything, not even the code,
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I mean, like, this is it. The things that do matter is
that
how
the spirit
you
of Kaizen.
Yes.
No, sorry, but like actually, like continuous improvement. As in, like, we will start at something that won't be perfect, because if I optimize right now for perfect, then it won't be good right now.
Yeah, and the other thing is if you do that, you're basically calcifying your business and processes before
as little process as possible.
Yeah. So, and I feel like I've not really gotten into any of what your sort of problem is here overall. Like, I'm talking very much around the, like, setting up for communication, setting up for how your people come together. But the fact of the matter is that everybody is sort of in their own little async pockets, if you like. I think you spoke about where the teams could end up and the sort of concepts that you had in the past of sort of daily stand-ups and some of those sort of things. I do think it will be useful to have some cadence to what's going on across all of this for your folks, whether that's like, hey, start of every month, we're going to check in on the roadmap, and we're going to like, broadcast where everybody's going, or whether it's weekly, fortnightly, but think about the sort of cycles that are going on, even with people being distributed, even with people being in their own little, like contracting sort of bubbles, if you like. I think there's still value to some sort of like cyclical process. And you're probably doing that one-on-one with people right now, as you catch up with them at a guess. Like you're having these calls on some regularity, and that's probably setting a bit of cadence with folks. I would, like say, try and see if there's a way of approaching some of that is less one-on-one based with your time, because that won't scale in the same way as well. And I'm not sure what that looks like.
What we do is like right now, every Monday, late in the morning, basically, we try to have like a synchronization meeting kind of, but right now the contractors aren't in there. So I'll have to ask them if they can make it, or if we can move the meeting or something, and just like try to get them in there every now and then at least.
Yeah, and even if it's like every other week or something, I think there is just some value to having that contact, because again, it gives the opportunity for them to not only tell you where stuff's at, and for you to sort of work with folks to say this is where we need to go, but it gives people an opportunity to go sideways with stuff as well. Like, hey, I'm looking at this, but actually I think maybe we could do something else over here, or you're explaining where the roadmap's going to go, and you give that opportunity for folks to sort of be communicating with each other. And I'm kind of hand waving here and leaning into that very managerial, like random collaboration value, get everybody around the water cooler that we have pushed. But there is some value to some cycle where folks get together in some regularity around things. And even if that is entirely async, an async version of that is like, on the first day of the week, whatever your first day of the week is, you add an update to where you're going for that week into a channel, into a Slack channel or a Teams channel or whatever, right? So it doesn't have to be synchronous, but the here's where we're going, here's what I'm trying to achieve, those sort of updates, I think they're useful for everybody to be giving. As you get bigger, the dependency between the different folks in your company will increase. If you've got somebody having it, I'm entirely responsible for this aspect of the back end, and somebody else is entirely responsible for standing up the dashboard, those two people are going to have to work pretty much in lockstep on certain features and things. So
totally, because especially the features, they're like mostly touching multiple services, right? They're touching the API and the front end, for example, and that's completely fine. Like, so people need to be able to work on both, but it's probably not going to be the same people.
What's the biggest problem that you're experiencing right now with all of this, do you think?
Project management wise?
Yeah, project or people management wise, over the whole lot of it.
I think the biggest problem right now is formulating exactly the steps that need to be taken. But because when I'm working on something alone, right, I'm only I'm writing the briefest of tickets that I would be completely unacceptable with everything else. It's just a half sentence thrown in. Sometimes it's even wrong by the time I'm more or less done, because the requirements have changed so much, and that just doesn't fly. Like, even in a very agile situation, what needs to happen is I need to have a communication with the people who are actually going to be implementing this shit, and be like, hey, I think this is what I want. What do you people like? What do you think about it? And then there will be a bit of cross talk and discussion, because someone will have a better idea and someone will have a different idea, and we kind of have to get everything under one umbrella, basically. And then we'll have to write a ticket that actually talks about this task, and add a few sub-tickets and whatever, do the whole refinement stuff. We might even do t-shirt sizes. Probably we won't, because it doesn't really make sense.
Limited value.
we're definitely not going
Okay.
to be doing some kind of poker. But anyway, like the whole refinement stuff, like that is something that needs to be done, I think. And I think I am going to be the one who needs to start doing this.
Yeah.
Um,
So
yeah,
okay,
and
that's a
it's
lot of stuff.
good, but also it's bad because it's just like a lot of work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
That needs to be at least mostly done by me. And so the question is like, where do I fall on the spectrum of like how much more like ticketing,
Mm-hmm.
description, refinement work do I want to do versus like how much do I want to like let other people do that?
Yeah,
Because
it's a good question. So and this is part of your pain at the moment, right? Is if I read this correctly, is that you haven't had to worry about articulating this stuff to any greater depth before now because you've been the receiving end of your one-liner tickets. You've been,
yeah,
it's
and
you've
I'm going to continue being that, but at the
yes,
same time, like contractor X comes in and I tell
mm-hmm,
him, hey, these are the things that I would like to work on at some point. And then maybe he has time Friday evening, writes a ticket
mm-hmm.
that says, hey, can I do this? And I'm like, well, I'm just like it's going somewhere, just like on the mobile app
Yeah,
right
yeah, yeah,
back.
yeah,
Yeah, whatever. Just like start doing that. And
yeah,
then he's
yeah,
done. He's built a very nice feature, but it's completely different from what I've envisioned. And it's actually in
yes,
conflict with a further down roadmap item because he didn't know about that roadmap item.
yes.
And there was not like, and so yeah, things work, but there is friction.
Okay, that's really good context because that I can look at that and I think, well, first up, your one-liner tickets are not really items of work right up until they become bigger things, right? They're
Right,
placeholders at that point,
right.
effectively. And you also described like even between when you write them out and then when you come back to doing it, the situation might have changed. So that one line is actually wrong
Mm,
and it's got to go another way. So, and this is like a typical problem of every single agile backlog as well, right? You have a backlog of stuff which has been given to you by the powers that be, the POs, the whoever's involved to define this stuff. In your case, it's you because you're wearing that hat as well. Um, and at the beginning stage, um, you may as well have a board that says Daniel's brain farts against it,
yeah,
right? Because that's what they kind of are until they become a real item of work. So the roadmap is useful in terms of if you have an articulated plan that's useful, but I think what you really need to be doing is, and this is probably a you and Lisa thing, really, is going, okay, where are we heading in terms of what we're building for our customers, and in terms of what we need as a business. There'll be strategic things that you need to do, activities you need to do that aren't customer facing. You need to define those things, and it can be really broad. Like in a year's time, we want to be serving these type of customers in this sort of a way. Okay, cool. If we want to get, how far away are we from that today? And you do that sort of forwards planning and you work back from that. Your job as the leader, as I kind of see this, is, and that is what you are in all of this. At the moment, you're wearing dev hats through to CEO type hats, founder hats, all of that, right? Many hats. But in terms of leading these currently these contractors, eventually perm staff, and leading folks around you, you need to be crystal clear about this is the direction. And I think a bit of a forwards view of like, okay, this is where it lands in a year's time, 6 months' time is what we're heading for. And being able to communicate that is useful. Where that adds up to your ticket problem is then if you've got a view of the big milestones, you can have as many one-liners in a backlog as you like, but you can then start to go, well, okay, how many of these things really are needed for the big directional stuff that we want? And that'll help you filter them appropriately. The next bit of that is well, okay, you need a process with everybody where you need a process, I think, where you're not trying to refine everything all at once, right? Just to have a perfect backlog that anybody can pick from. That's really a waste of your time because of the movements in things, because of the fact you'll write a really good ticket on Monday, and by the next Monday, like you say, it could be invalid. Like, so what's the point? Why should you spend that time refining it to that detail if it's not needed yet? And if you're following with me here, and if you agree, Daniel, because I'm saying a lot of words, but you may have your own ideas on this as well. But it naturally leads to a point then of, well, what does just-in-time refinement look like? Can you build a process that sort of reflects some of the reality of how you're having to work at the moment?
I think so, yeah. So first of all, what I'm hearing is is that you think actually the roadmap is pretty important, like the big ticket
I
items,
do.
basically,
Yeah.
and that makes a lot of sense to me. And I think that is actually taking a lot of weight off my shoulders right now, because it means that, oh yeah, if I have and am able to communicate for the next 5 big features, basically how these should like look and work, like on a very like high level
Yes.
concept wise,
Yes.
then like me and the coworkers, the minions, the contractors, the working students,
Your
can then
peeps.
like my peeps. Minions, today we steal the moon.
Yes.
Can then work together basically to like, because like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Then all the one-liner tickets are already in a context. They're not enough
Yes.
yet, but they're already
Mm-hmm.
better. And then I think what can happen is then um, if the one-liner ticket becomes one line plus 2 sentences, like title plus 2 sentences,
Mm-hmm.
then I think a process can start where either me and a coworker, or even 2 coworkers without me, can then have a discussion right in the ticket, basically, because it has a
Yes.
discussion function
Yeah.
about okay, implementation and so on. Like, and I
Yeah.
think I'm used to doing this synchronously, via video calls, but I think that can actually happen off like async as well. Like,
You do both, right? You
I
start off
kinda,
synchronous and then move
yeah,
to async when everybody knows the dance moves, as it
yeah,
were.
yeah. I think it's also a preference thing, because I know at least one of our contractors, he vastly prefers textual communication
Yep.
over over video communication.
And that's fine. That's fine, right? As well, you're in a place where you can make make process and make room for all of
Yeah.
that sort of variance, if you like. Um, yeah, and I guess what I'm driving towards here as well is we spoke before about the cadence being a thing. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like reviewing where you're going every week, every 2 weeks, every month, or whatever. When you're doing that against a directional roadmap with very clear goals, that then also it helps you be very organized about what you're pulling from that backlog of brain farts, ideas, and the rest of it, right? Because you can link it to that direction. You're on uh, a smaller cycle, and it means you can tweak accordingly. So then it goes like, well, okay, I've got this next week to work on something meaningful towards these things. What are the things that are really going to do that? You know, is it in the backlog? Do we have enough information for me to go and do those things? And you know, naturally, your process starts to fall out of those questions, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also like, if you have a roadmap, you can often do things like prepare those Lego effect synergy kind of moments, where it's like, okay, I know that like somewhere in the roadmap is this feature, and this feature
Mm-hmm.
would greatly benefit from if my feature that I'm working on right now had this extension kind of thing, and so you
Yes.
can do that, can prepare that, or at least don't block the road towards that, because you already know what's going on.
That's it. And when I think about this sort of stuff, right, in my own mind's eye, if you like, I sort of see it a bit like okay, so I use Source Tree for my Git interactions, and it has a history view, a like a branch view rather, that I really like, because it shows you where all your branches are, and it shows you visually in different color branches how they then merge back together. And so if you like, you can think of in my mind's eye, I sort of see separate projects as your different branches, and then your release moments and that sort of thing as being like where everything comes back together. And I guess I kind of visualize a lot of this stuff in that sort of a way, right? It's a flow, it's a line of traffic that then meets periodically for certain events. Sometimes that'll look like just kicking an update out of the door that's a single feature. Sometimes it's a big song and dance release that you're going to blog about or whatever. But like, that's where your roadmap for you and your people and eventually your customers kind of really comes to life. Is like, and we spoke about this offline outside of this, right? But you need to be defining your releases in a way where there's something meaningful. And it's another aspect to all of this, right? You asked me, okay, Dave, what defines a release? What are we talking about here? And this
But
was off
what
the back of
is a release when you really think about it?
yeah. And this came off the back of me sort of saying to you, look, you're doing Kanban, but it can become just a perpetual Sisyphean kind of thing where you never clear the backlog. It's sort of this march of doing shit. And I said to you, like, your releases are important. You need to be organizing, even if you've got separate streams of people working on stuff, you need to be articulating like how all of that stuff adds up to a release and defining what that looks like.
Yeah, that was actually a really helpful comment from you. So, after you said that, in the meantime, I have created for every single item on the roadmap right now. I have created a GitHub project with a separate Kanban board, and I also created another project that is called Bugs and Paper Cuts, which is where I'm just going to collect all the little things that people either like where things don't work, where I discover a bug, or when someone actually writes in and says like, "Hey, this is not working for me because X,"
mm-hmm.
because I really want to keep track of those as well, because these are kind of also things that need to be worked on.
They do, yes.
And so, but that is kind of a perpetual board, whereas the others, they are built with the intention of closing them at some point and then writing the blog post and congratulating ourselves,
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good way of looking at these, because I've only ever worked with perpetual Kanban boards, and they can that can be like very disheartening, really.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like especially like I've already created a project for the update of our website, right? And the left side of that board is getting really empty, and it feels really, really good.
Yes. Yeah, and that's I think it's a thing, right? And the reason I call all of that out is like, again, it's about setting direction. It's about being very clear about this is where we're heading or what we're trying to do, and providing a means for you to communicate that to the people working for you and and your customers even as well, right? So it should all be linked. There's a situation here of like, I think we landed on, okay, what defines a release? It's a feature or set of features that provide some value to your customers. I think at its heart, that's what I would say it should be. I'm kind of hand waving the internal businessy stuff that is good for you, but your customers don't really care about. But like a release, a public statement of we have gone to version X of a thing, should have some meaning to your customers, and then in turn, that then means it's a bloggable event when it happens, right? It's even if it's like a very short thing, but it's being able to put a communication out when it's done, saying, and now we can do blah, and it should also be linked to, and this is why this is important, a customer need or set of needs, that sort of thing. And again, the reason I think this is important back in a development position or a contractor trying to chunk through tickets position is, I think there's value in knowing why you're doing, what it adds up to. And at the moment, that's probably pretty obvious and is well communicated for your folks, because you're at a level of scale where they're very directly involved with, this then lets us do blah. There's a point in scaling up where that all becomes more disconnected, and you have to be very deliberate about communicating that. I think there's value.
Also, we
to
haven't
still
decided
focusing.
yet. I'm sorry. I thought you were done. Go on.
Go for it.
Yeah. Okay. We haven't decided yet. We haven't talked about, like, I have all these projects, and I have the bugs project, but also like the different features projects, and like we haven't decided like how people are actually gonna pick what they're working on, because if it's just one board or one sprint or one like Scrum team that you're part of, that's easy, right? Like you just like pick the next open ticket.
Yeah.
But like you are virtually coming to work. Are you going to pick up a bug? Are you going to work on like the feature that you're working on, like just picking up the next ticket there? You're like, what are you doing? So far, I don't think this needs an immediate answer. I think this can be a, like, how do you feel on that day? And maybe you start with a small little bug that has like that feels like, okay, this should be easily fixable just to get going. And then you get into something bigger. But yeah, this basically needs to be thought about at some point.
But there's a couple of ways you can attack that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think what you're describing there works fine right now, but there's a point in this where if you're saying, okay, this is our roadmap, these are our, the direction we're trying to get to, or the features we're trying to, get out of the door that add up to this release, for example, you can have a different conversation when you've articulated that, because it becomes a case of going, well, okay, you're logging on to virtually work. Here's the big priority for this week. And actually, what that person can then do, if you've got things reasonably well articulated, is go, well, this bug is in that area, so I'm going to actually do these bugs along with this bit of the feature, because context wise that's useful. But the other bit that shouldn't be in question is what's important right now for telemetry deck.
Yeah, that's the thing, like, because even if there's like 5 projects already, like one of them is the one that is up next, that is actively being worked on. And also, like, people usually should feel a certain affinity to a certain feature, like if they are really like if they're really working on the feature after the next one, they will know why.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So, and I kind of want to wrap the show, I think, Daniel, in some ways. Like, I feel like I'm sort of talked out at the moment on some of my views with this, but like, I think if I was to zoom all the way out, what I'm saying to you here is the fundamental thing that you need to be doing, I think, is being crystal clear about, direction, milestones, why we're doing what we're doing. This is where we're heading. I think those things are more important than refining tickets to the nth degree at the moment, because actually when you define those and you head for those, that will let you do just-in-time refinement and build that into your process a little bit more naturally. Like, you're not going to over-engineer articulating it. Yeah.
I like that. Fantastic. That's a really good takeaway. Do you want to talk about the other thing? Like, or are you just done for the day? Like, because we've been talking about an hour now.
We've been talking a while now. Yes. But the other thing is that I've started working on a new app straight off the heels of the GoVJ 3 release.
Using, of course, the project management skills that you are just now imparting on myself.
Yeah, me, myself, and I.
Did you start a new Kanban board? Like, how long are your sprints? What's your burnout?
The leader, chart? Honestly, the CEO of Lightbeam Apps is just totally all over the place with this stuff. My boss is terrible. No, this is the thing though, right? I'm a team of 1, and the rules are slightly different in that sense.
Oh, yeah.
They're also not, right? So there is a bit that does still come back into solo dev here. And actually, I can talk about that for a few minutes before we wrap the show. But and you're right to call it out. Like, hey, Dave, how do you apply this stuff at home, as it were?
But you don't need to, right? Because like managing yourself as an only developer is very different. And also, you're doing this for fun, right?
Sort of. So let's actually be quite real and honest about this. I am trying to build a business with Lightbeam Apps. I'm just doing it in a very fits and starts, because that is the time I've got available for it. I had a bit of a think last Christmas time I was off from my day job for a while, did a bit of, where do I want to head with all of this? What I did do is get very clear with myself that the focus for my side business, if you like, is all in video apps, video orientated apps. I needed to stop doing things that sit to the side of that. So, for example, I've got the app for Mastodon. I've got my Topiary app for managing your followers. That's seen no love now in quite a long while. I probably need to sunset it. Because really it's a distraction in the scheme of things. So everything I've been talking to you about in the rest of the show before, about setting direction, about being clear about what goals and releases look like, and actually trying to link to what your customers need, I am applying that within Lightbeam and GoVJ and the apps I'm building. I am trying to do that. So, but it's a very, very basic, bashing rocks together version of it, because I don't need to be worried about, communicating with a whole bunch of other people to try and make this stuff happen. It's just me at the moment. But
all right, fair.
Yeah. But I am still doing a bit of it. So if I look down, I'm using Bear. I've got a notes file. I have a note that is called Lightbeam Plans for 2024. And after I released GoVJ 3 the other week, I went down my prospective things I could be doing and pulled together a bit of a forwards view for the next few months. So
Very
I am
good.
kind of doing it, just on a very, let's say, very small sliver of it. So I can tell you, June's priorities is getting GoVJ 3.1 out the door. There's a couple of tweaks and bug fixes that people need. A lot of that is done, so I just need to test and ship it. I've got a task in there for redoing my Lightbeam apps website, because it's god awful compared to the 11T based ones I've got for the app. And then the other task in there is this new app I'm working on. So
what's the app about?
The new app is a camera switcher app.
So the one so that's exactly the feature you told me about last week.
Yes.
And so you actually decided to go ahead and build it. So can you just repeat for the listeners what is a camera switcher?
Okay, so in this context, it is GoVJ brought in a feature using a framework called NDI, which I believe, I never remember what NDI stands for. I want to call it Network Display Interface. It's not. I think it's Network Device Interface. Doesn't really matter.
Non-disclosure agreement.
Maybe. But you can understand it as it lets you send video from one device to another over your Wi-Fi or Ethernet network. Typically, it's a local network that is used. So you end up with these installs in venues where gigs are taking place, where you also end up with them in churches. Even some of the big churches have cameras set up, and they do a whole visual experience on a Sunday. It's not a world I know very much of, because I'm not religious in that way. But anyway, places with cameras, they're networked. They're using them to display on a big screen, either for a DJ, a band or whatever, or a pastor giving a sermon. And they've got all these network video cameras. My app can then run on, say, an iPad and give you a grid of all your cameras that are connected over the network. And it becomes a switcher in that you can select one of those feeds and it will display it full screen out to whatever's connected to the iPad. So you could have you could literally run your show from that potentially by flicking between the cameras appropriately. Or very simply, it can just sit there and let you have a good visual of what all the cameras are doing. So you can choose which one you're showing on your other bit of hardware or software. It'll also let you record them as well. Now, this is going to be asking a lot of the device, so there's probably going to be some hey, you run this feature and actually it's going to turn your phone into a handheld heater because you're going to be using all the cores. But I've got it there already. Like I've got a situation where it can already display this grid of whatever's on the network. You can connect the cameras, and that was like a day's worth of dev effort using everything I've built so far with GoVJ to just get a
that's
reasonable
really not bad
prototype.
because you have such a head start, right? Because you have all this knowledge, you have these Lego blocks of code and stuff like that. So yeah, awesome.
Yeah. So that's the thing, right? And I'm doing what I would describe in a bigger business way of time boxing the effort, right? So there's a point here where if I'm still talking about this app in August, I've messed up, right? Because it should not be eating all of my dev time to get into Pro VJ. That is a higher priority eventually. This is where I have to be totally honest and say this isn't customer led. This isn't, big business, good views of how the market works or anything. I wanted to build this switcher app. It's the thing I wanted to exist. But the deal I've made with myself as my own manager, if you like, is like there's this window between GoVJ 3 going out and getting into Pro VJ where I could spend, say, 2 weeks to a month trying to have a go at spinning out something really quick. So that's what this app is. It's scratching an itch, but making sure I don't keep doing that for the rest of the year.
But I think that's a really good, a fantastic idea that also fits within your bigger plan and roadmap. Like you're building this, and then just like as I want to say MVP kind of ish, just build it a little bit and then see if people are starting to discover it and like finding it valuable. And if they do, then you can shift focus a little bit. And if they don't, then it's fine. Like you haven't spent like so much work,
Exactly. And there's a thing with this, right? These network cameras, as I've described, they have a whole protocol for controlling their zoom, their rotation, and all of that. I'm probably not going to build that for version 1, right? You just switch it where it is with whatever focus it's set to. And it won't be good enough for a whole bunch of people. But if I over-optimize, I could spend spend a whole chunk of the next month trying to build that into the app. But there's no point at the moment. Like I just need to get the switching working. I've got all the components for that, display the stuff, get it out there. I want people to go, hey, I've downloaded your app and it's great, except I need this camera control.
The thing I'm wondering the most is how will you reach, how will people find the app? Because they have to decide that this is something they need, and B, search for it on the App Store and not somewhere else, and C, then decide on your application.
So this is where I'm turning my process inside out a little bit, and this is definitely where this is back to front, because really I would advocate that you check your market first, you try and find where people are, you make contact with those potential customers in some fashion, and you actually try and get the lay of the land before you do a load of dev. So I'm doing this backwards and going against some of my own principles here. But remember, the app is existing to scratch an itch that I want to make it. And I've been very considerate about not wasting too much time on it. So what will happen is I will get it to a test flight beta as quickly as I can. I will then use that test flight beta to go and find those potential customers. So that will be me going to Facebook, Reddit, Instagram, wherever, right? Anywhere online where I think that people may be, and asking them, hey, do you want to kick the tires on this thing?
Right.
That's how I will prove to myself whether I can sell it or not. If I can't find those beta testers, then I'm probably not going to find my customers.
Yeah, that makes sense, because if the beta testers are not even willing to try it for free, then you're probably not going to find too many payers. But yeah, I feel like you had an example previously where it's like the pastor in a church or whatever. Like, how do you reach these people? Like, and even like even if you had like if you had a direct connection to that pastor, like,
Mm-hmm.
can you tell them, hey, you need an app to switch the different cameras? You know?
No, what it will look like will be, well, for a start, it won't be the pastor running the show. It'll be typically a nominated church video nerd. I think gets involved, and
The holy nerd.
the holy nerd, yes, and they'll typically they'll be there's a range of different people who do that sort of work, right? Some of them are really seasoned video nerds. Some of them are probably kids who are much like myself when I got into VJing, right? Who just like messing with the tech, and they're in their early 20s or whatever, and they're doing that. So those are the people I need to find. Right, and they communicate the technicalities of what they do on forums, on groups, on Reddit. I've done a bit of looking around already, and I will try and make contact with those people, because they'll have different needs to say. Somebody like myself who will noodle with this, playing with video, with my VJ mixing, right, with my mixing video to music. They'll have slightly different needs, so I'll need to find those people and make contact. It'll be through trying to find the beta testers, for sure. And really the question for those folk is going to be, well, what, given this demo, as it were, this test flight app, what does it need to be properly useful for you? Like, not even like, do you want to kick the tires on this thing and see if it works? It's like, okay, but what's it missing that you need for it to be really useful? Yeah. And that's how I'll get there with that. Yeah.
I can see that. Does it have a name yet? And if it has, do you want to share?
No, it's literally just called the NDI switcher at the moment. So it needs something a bit more glamorous.
Probably. But I love it. I love that you are that you're doing this, and I wish you so much success with it.
Thank you, Daniel.
Because it might be that it is completely ignored because it is like less fun than a VJ app, but it also might be that it has a way bigger niche than a VJ app could have, because more people use cameras and stuff like that. So yeah,
there's a whole other angle, right? You could use it for one thing that I'm thinking about building is actually having the ability to live stream out of the app. And then there's a point there where I'm moving out of the video space, managing the audio as well, right? That's going to be a part of this that is new for me. And where it then becomes a case of, well, I've got a couple of iPhones on me or whatever. I'm doing a live stream and I'm using this to switch between that. I really want to do that.
You're on Twitch or another streaming service now, and
yes.
I can see that. That's cool. That's kind of cool.
So yeah, we'll see. I've got all the nuts and bolts.
Then add face detection to automatically switch to that camera that you're looking into.
Oh yes, I mean, maybe so yeah. Right now, I'm scratching my own itch and having fun with just playing with the building blocks.
We're mapping out the entire VJaniverse.
Yes, that's right. The expanded video, what do you call it? Universe.
VJaniverse. VJ.
That sounds wrong.
VJaniverse.
Sounds so wrong. Daniel, I could go on forever, and I've gone on enough on this show. This has definitely been the Dave Says Words show.
That is the Dave Says Words show, which is the new title of this show.
No, please no.
The thing is, I tried to take notes every now and then in between, but then I was like, wait, I have a transcript of this. I'm gonna have a transcript of this. I also have I'm gonna have a recording of this. I still took notes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but Dave, thank you so much for laying out how you think about the project management thing, and also about telling me about the NDI switcher. You, dear listener, thank you so much for listening. Please please rate us on iTunes and or YouTube. Send us emails at contact@waitingforreview.com about what you think about project management. Also, write it down in the comments below why you love Scrum. And Dave, if people have their comments directly to you, where can people find you?
I'm almost about to say, please don't at me after giving all my thoughts about this stuff.
That is fine. Like, if you also, we can just like ask people to write to mention me on Mastodon if they want to talk about project management.
No, seriously, you can find me at dave@social.lightbeamapps.com on Mastodon. And, feel free to at me or leave comments on the YouTube or message Daniel or whatever about anything in this show, because actually I've given one set of views to all of this stuff, right? And there's so many different ways that this stuff can be approached. So I would like to say, if anybody has any ideas about anything we've talked about, please do at us. Actually, it's really interesting to get other points of view. But yeah, that's me. You can find my apps as well at lightbeamapps.com. And Daniel, how about yourself, mate?
Yeah, go to telemetrydeck.com/survey, because I haven't talked about this on the show at all, but I made really, really pretty charts. And also go to daniel@social.telemetrydeck.com if you want to talk more about project management and or other things. Thanks so much. Dave, have a fantastic day. I am going to have a fantastic evening, it's already very late. So it's not going to be a super long evening, but it's going to be fantastic. And yeah, I hope to see you soon. In fact,
take care,
next
Daniel.
week at the latest. Bye.
Awesome.